The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight as 36-year-old CEO Alexander Hartwell quietly climbed the stairs to check on his 2-year-old daughter, Isabella. His business trip to Chicago had ended early when his assistant called to tell him that Isabella had developed a high fever, and Alexander had immediately chartered a private jet to return home to his Beverly Hills mansion. Alexander had been raising Isabella alone since his wife Victoria died in a car accident when Isabella was just 6 months old. The transition from married executive to single father had been the most challenging period of his life, requiring him to learn not just the practical aspects of child care, but how to balance his demanding career with his daughter's needs. 6 months ago, he had hired Emma Richardson as Isabella's full-time nanny. At 26, Emma was a registered nurse who had decided to focus on private child care after working in pediatric hospitals for 3 years. Her qualifications were impeccable, her references glowing, and most importantly, Isabella had taken to her immediately. As Alexander approached Isabella's room, he could hear soft murmuring through the slightly open door. The night light cast a gentle glow, and he could see Emma sitting in the rocking chair beside Isabella's crib, holding his daughter and speaking to her in soothing whispers. "It is okay, sweetheart," Emma was saying gently. "I know you do not feel well, but the medicine is going to help you feel better, and I'm going to stay right here with you all night." Alexander felt his heart clench as he saw his daughter's flushed face and heard her labored breathing. Isabella had been fighting a respiratory infection for 2 days, and despite the pediatrician's assurances that it was not serious, Alexander had been tormented by worry during his business meetings. What struck him most, however, was Emma's complete devotion to Isabella's comfort. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore comfortable clothes rather than her usual professional attire. She had clearly been up with Isabella for hours, monitoring her fever and providing the kind of constant attention that only someone who truly cared would offer. "Mr. Hartwell." Emma noticed him standing in the doorway and spoke quietly so as not to disturb Isabella, who had finally fallen asleep against her shoulder. "How is she?" Alexander whispered, stepping into the room. "Her fever broke about an hour ago, and her breathing has improved significantly. The pediatric Ian was right that it was just a common respiratory infection, but she has been uncomfortable and fussy. I did not want to leave her alone." Alexander could see the exhaustion in Emma's eyes, but also the genuine concern and affection she felt for his daughter. "Emma, you should go get some rest. I can take over now that I am home." "Actually, sir, I was planning to sleep here tonight to monitor her breathing and temperature. The doctor said the next 12 hours are important for making sure she continues to improve." Alexander looked around the pink-decorated nursery, noting that there was no comfortable place for Emma to sleep except for the rocking chair. "Where exactly were you planning to sleep?" Emma gestured toward the floor beside Isabella's crib, where Alexander now noticed she had arranged several pillows and a small blanket. "I brought some things from my room. I will be perfectly comfortable, and I will be able to hear immediately if Isabella needs anything." Alexander felt a mixture of gratitude and concern wash over him. Here was a woman who was willing to spend the night on a hardwood floor to ensure his daughter received the best possible care during her illness. "Emma, that is incredibly dedicated of you, but I cannot ask you to sleep on the floor." "You are not asking, sir. I am choosing to do this because Isabella needs someone to watch over her tonight, and I want to make sure she gets the care she deserves." Alexander stood quietly for a moment, watching Emma gently rock his sleeping daughter. The scene reminded him powerfully of the nights when Victoria had stayed up with Isabella during her early months, providing the kind of tireless maternal care that he had feared his daughter would never receive again. "Emma," Alexander said softly, "I want you to put Isabella in her crib and go get a good night's sleep in your own bed." Emma looked confused and slightly worried. "Sir, I really think someone should stay with her tonight. Her breathing is much better, but young children can take turns for the worse quickly with respiratory infections." "You are absolutely right. Someone should stay with her tonight. But that someone is going to be me. Mr. Hartwell, you just returned from a business trip. You must be exhausted. Not more exhausted than you are after staying up with her for the past 2 days. Emma, you have gone above and beyond what anyone could reasonably expect. Now it is my turn to be the parent." Emma carefully transferred the sleeping Isabella to her crib, adjusting the soft pink blankets around her tiny form. "Sir, are you sure you know what to watch for? The signs of respiratory distress, the fever management schedule." Alexander smiled at Emma's protective concern for his daughter. I think I can manage, but would you feel better if I promised to wake you immediately if I have any concerns? Yes, sir. That would make me feel much better. After Emma reluctantly left for her own room, Alexander settled into the rocking chair beside Isabella's crib. As he watched his daughter sleep peacefully, her breathing steady, and her color returning to normal, he reflected on how fortunate they both were to have Emma in their lives. Emma's willingness to sacrifice her own comfort for Isabella's well-being had reminded Alexander of something important. The best caregivers are not just employees doing a job, but people who genuinely care about the children in their charge. The next morning, after Isabella had slept through the night without fever or breathing problems, Alexander found Emma in the kitchen preparing Isabella's breakfast with the same careful attention she brought to everything she did. "How is our patient this morning?" Emma asked, looking up from the bowl of oatmeal she was preparing. "Much better. Her fever is completely gone and she woke up asking for her favorite stuffed elephant. I think we can safely say the crisis has passed." Emma's face lit up with relief. "I am so glad. Respiratory infections in toddlers can be frightening, but Isabella is a strong little girl. Emma, I want to talk to you about last night." Emma's expression became cautious, clearly wondering if she had somehow overstepped her boundaries. "What you were willing to do for Isabella, staying up all night and sleeping on the floor to monitor her condition, that went far beyond your job responsibilities. That was the kind of care that only someone who truly loves a child would provide. Sir, I do love Isabella. She is not just my job. She is a little girl who has already lost her mother, and I want to make sure she always feels safe and cared for." Alexander felt his eyes mist with emotion. "Emma, I need you to know that what you have given Isabella is something I was afraid she might never have. The experience of being loved by someone who chooses to care for her, not out of obligation, but out of genuine affection. Mr. Hartwell, caring for Isabella has been the most rewarding work of my life. She is an amazing little girl. Which brings me to what I wanted to discuss with you. I have been thinking about this for months, but last night confirmed it for me. I would like to offer you a permanent position as Isabella's guardian and companion with a substantial salary increase, full benefits, and most importantly, the understanding that you are not just an employee, but an essential part of Isabella's family." Emma stared at him in surprise. "Sir, what exactly are you asking?" "I am asking if you would consider staying with us permanently, helping me raise Isabella as she grows up. I am asking if you would be willing to be the maternal figure in her life that she needs and deserves." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Hartwell, you are offering me everything I could ever want. The chance to watch Isabella grow up, to be part of her life, not just for a few years, but for as long as she needs me. Then you will accept." "Yes," Emma said, wiping away tears of joy. "Yes, I will absolutely accept." 5 years later, Alexander stood in the doorway of Isabella's bedroom, now decorated in purple and yellow instead of pink, watching as 7-year-old Isabella read a bedtime story to Emma, who was sitting beside her on the bed. The scene was a perfect reversal of that night long ago, when Emma had stayed up caring for a sick toddler. "Daddy," Isabella called when she spotted him. "I am reading Emma the story about the princess and the dragon. Emma says I am getting really good at the big words." "She is an excellent reader," Emma confirmed, smiling at Isabella with the same love and pride she had shown since that first night on the floor. "Emma," Isabella said, settling against Emma's shoulder, "will you always be here to take care of me?" "Always, sweetheart, for as long as you want me here." As Alexander tucked Isabella into bed and said good night to both his daughter and the woman who had become so much more than a nanny, he reflected on how a single night of illness had revealed the true character of the person caring for his child. Emma's willingness to sleep on the floor to watch over Isabella had shown Alexander that love cannot be hired or purchased. It can only be given freely by someone who chooses to put a child's well-being above their own comfort. The millionaire who had worried about finding adequate care for his motherless daughter had discovered that the most valuable thing money could buy was not luxury or convenience, but the opportunity to recognize and support someone who already possessed the most important qualification for caring for children: a heart willing to love them unconditionally. Sometimes the most shocking thing a wealthy person can do is not to display their power or generosity, but simply to recognize and honor the love that already exists in their home, and to ensure that it is protected and cherished for years to come.